favorite red-headed bard is almost upon us, and I'm here to ask the question on everyone's mind. Ciaccona, Shakira?
Ciaccona.
Every time you butcher her name, someone out there loses a 50-50.
Here we go! Someone the best!
That's right.
Tectone.
Just lost to another
Gene.
Tragic. Anyway, I'm here to tell you if this is your new must-pull wife or the easiest skip of your life. Yes, me, the renowned woo tourist, is actually making an informative video. I know, shocking. It must be Christmas. So, who is Ciaccona? She's the bard from Rinascita, able to bring life to melodies and literally recreate the world through song. A bright personality with a magical voice. Horns sharper than an Asmongold's hot take. True story, those horns are actually lopsided because as a child, she was mistaken for a black rhino by poachers. Sad. Her cloak tassels? Yeah, each one is made from the essence of 3 Venti mains. Fashion isn't free, Venti had died for this drip. She attacks using a microphone like a sword, because why not? We still can't tell if she's schizophrenic or just has one of the most aggressive cases of stage rage ever recorded. After her last concert at the O2 Arena, she allegedly beat a security guard half to death because she thought he was a tacit discord. That man is now in hospital in critical condition and also has become her biggest fan. Stockholm Syndrome really worked fast on that one. Ciaccona can often be heard spitting mad bars into her microphone. Her favorite songs being Cardigan by Taylor Swift, Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, and Mega Luxurious Breasted... oh, okay. Yeah, whatever. So, issue with swiping or skipping. I'm going to keep this really quick and simple for you guys. If you have no interest in pulling Cardithea, Ciaccona is probably going to be the easiest skip of your life. Like, I didn't even hesitate level of skip. Her solo damage doesn't seem to be particularly stellar, with a lot of her damage lying behind the amplified and boosted air erosion dots that she will be placing. She has an outro skill that is effectively useless to everybody apart from her and any character that applies air erosion, which right now is really only Aero Rover, kind of, when he converts them really. It's kind of silly, but whatever. In terms of team building, she doesn't really have a solid place to fit with the current roster. You could try her out in place of Spectre Rover with Zanny, as she can apply Spectrofrazzle too, but other than that and Aero Rover, she's kind of in her own lane. Now, there is something that might be fun when it comes to Ciaccona. In her forte, when she has 3 musical segments available, she's able to shoot downbeat notes which deal aero damage. It also acts as a grouping ability, applying 1 stack of aero erosion to everyone that's hit. This ability might make her clutch up a bit when it comes to whimpering wastes. We all know just how infuriating it is to see enemies going for a jog around the map halfway through your rotations like they're trying to max out their steps for the day. Yeah, not very cool if you ask me. This is going to up her pulling potential somewhat if you care about getting max points in this game mode, but I'm going to be honest, for me, I don't think it's enough to be swayed when my asterite numbers are looking lower than a Tuhu stream. Ciaccona's weapon is a lot like Ciaccona herself, confused, niche, and a little boring. It's a crit rate main stat, which allows Ciaccona to deal more damage with the attack and aero damage buffs, but the only great part of this weapon is the 10% aero res shred that gets applied to enemies for 20 seconds. And you know what else is a great pick for Ciaccona? Static Mist, the standard banner weapon. It has crit rate, extra energy regeneration so she's easier to build, and a whole 10% attack buff for the next resonator after you outro. Unless you're min-maxing her to the fullest, the standard banner weapon will work just fine for her. Let's not also forget that her animations are just pretty underwhelming, and if you pull her, expect to be hearing a lot of her song. All of this leaves me to say that Ciaccona, while probably will be the best support for Cardithea, feels slightly confused, boring, and a little lackluster in both solo power and buffs to other resonators to make her viable in other teams. All this leaves me to say that I'm gonna give her a skip rating of 75%. I don't know. I feel she's pretty goddamn skippable if you ask me. I think it's really important to mention and bring up the fact that, hey, if we're being totally honest and real with ourselves, Wuthering Waves Endgame isn't particularly overwhelmingly challenging or difficult. I know a lot of people have expected this game to be, you know, the gacha for the hardcore players. Its endgame is difficult. The holograms are difficult. They remind you of Dark Souls-esque bosses. While the holograms can definitely be true, they're not really the true endgame modes that we're familiar with gachas. That's reserved for Tower of Adversity and Whimpering Wastes for now. And I think we could say pretty confidently it's not that much of a challenge if you have sufficiently invested in your characters, i.e. you're actually playing the game. You're playing the game, you're doing your dailies, you're upgrading your characters, and you have, you know, a decent team, a decent roster. The game is pretty much, I don't want to call it a cakewalk, but it's difficult. I wouldn't put that into words. I wouldn't call it difficult. I should say. One of the best things about Wuthering Waves is that you can kind of mix and match a lot of characters to make teams and end up still clearing all the content. The game doesn't rely on you to have very specific teams, very specific setups in order to just complete the endgame modes. You can kind of pick and choose who you like. You want to use Carlotta but you don't have Zeza? That's totally fine. That's cool. You don't need her. you don't need her to complete and do all the content in the endgame mode, and that's what makes it particularly great. I think Whimpering Wastes really is the endgame mode that people might struggle with the most, because the buffs change, and every time they change the buffs in every like new cycle, something always happens that makes people upset, right? We all know that. They kind of upset people sometimes, so I think Whimpering Wastes might be the one that gives people the most trouble. But that's probably due to a lack of characters that are specifically catered for it. But at the end of the day, it's still a case that most characters are still viable to use in these endgame mode. Heck, I even tried to make a point out of this with the current TOA setup. I even used Era Rover as a main DPS. Yes, I used Shorekeeper, Era Rover, and Sanhua. Yes, Sanhua in a team with Era Rover as my main DPS to do the Hazard Tower and 3-star it. And I did. Was it painful? Yes. But did I manage it? Also yes. And as we all know, Era Rover is a pretty pitiful DPS. Even like right now, like S1 with the... I used Xiangli's weapon on him to do that challenge, which, you know, hey, you know, gotta do what you gotta do, am I right? But it just kind of goes to show that as long as you have invested characters, you will be fine in these game modes. Don't feel the need or feel pressured to be pulling for every character. I need this character for this upcoming one. You don't. You really don't. And all this talk of power creep, it doesn't really matter when the endgame modes don't particularly get harder. For now, I think the game is in an okay state. I think it's something to keep looking at for the future. I think the release of Cardathea is going to stoke a lot of interesting conversations. I think 2.4 really is going to be a turning point for Wuthering Waves. I feel the devs are going to test their limits on what they can get away with, okay, in terms of maybe power scaling their characters, and we all have to keep an eye on them and make sure we keep them accountable if they do things we do not like. We have to be open to criticism, and we have to be open to the fact that maybe things might happen that we might not like, but who knows? Time will only tell. But as you all know, I'm going to give my most fair, unbiased take as I can. I know a lot of you might see me as a Kurobot, but I like to pride myself on being fair and objective where I can. So I'm excited for the second half of 2.3, where this is going to go. But I'm also really looking forward to 2.4 and where this is going to take the game. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you disagree with anything I said, you are just wrong, but you're welcome to shout at me on my live over on Twitch from 11 a.m. GMT every single day. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Twitch.tv/Captain Cabinetz, Captain Cabinetz. So